Welcome back to the Nomad's Notebook podcast. As always, my name is Joe Maxwell. I got a raise recently at work, a pretty substantial raise, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself. You know, it's nice to have some extra money, ideally some extra money to save, which I'm reading a book called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. I think that's how you pronounce it. But I initially heard of him through a podcast, Chris Williamson's podcast, Modern Wisdom, and a lot of the ideas that he was talking about really resonated with me. I really connected with them on a deep level. That's been a way I've found a lot of good books to read, is listening to a number of different types of podcasts and different guests, and whatever episode really resonates with me. Because a lot of times people who go on podcasts are authors and they're promoting something. If what they're saying really connects with me, then I'll go and research their book. And if it has good reviews, and ideally if they've narrated it on Audible, because I take a lot of my books through Audible, I'll just go ahead and buy it and listen to it on my drive to work, because I have a decently long commute, so I like to make good use of the time. So a little bit of a tangent there, but the psychology of money is just the concept that you don't always need a reason to save money, right? Like people will always make plans like, oh, I want to go to Mexico for vacations. I'm going to put a couple grand aside, or, oh, I'm saving for retirement. I mean, that's all good, right? Like I like to travel and I have a retirement savings account that I just automatically deposit into every month. But you could just save money so that you have peace of mind, right? So that you know you have 6 months of living expenses saved up. I think that's what Dave Ramsey says. And then you're not so reliant on your job and the whims of your bosses. And if your job gets so bad, you can leave and you're not feeling super stressed. So I think saving money just for the point of peace of mind is more than enough reason in addition to these other things. But anyway, that's probably a whole other episode. But I do want to talk about money today. Specifically, making more money almost always means taking on more and bigger problems. So with this raise at work, my boss has actually requested a meeting to talk about this specific issue with me a few months back. And then in preparation for that, because it's always important in any negotiation or business situation to know exactly what you want. Even in relationships, I think that's just a good concept to always know exactly what you want. And for me, it helps to write things down. So I wrote down a very detailed proposal of kind of the areas I'd grown in, what I want in the future, and what I'm willing to take on, and areas I'm willing to grow in exchange for that additional money. Because that's the thing I see with a lot of young people these days, is they want more, but they're not willing to work harder. And that goes against a law of the universe, that if you want more money, then you're going to have to work harder. You need to provide more value, and businesses need to adhere to that law. Like, your boss might be a great guy and he might really like you a lot and he might want to pay you more money, but ultimately if you don't bring more value to the table, he can't give you more money, because if he does that for too long over a continual period of time, then the business is going to go under, right? That's a reality. Value needs to equal money in a corporate setting. Now, if you're a government employee or in some nonprofit deal, I'm not even going to comment on that. I'm not as familiar with that stuff. Maybe that's a little different. And, there's in bigger companies, there's probably office politics and seniority and all this other crap that I don't really have time for. But in any case, the basis is value equals money. Bring more value, make more money. And something happened to me recently. I had an experience that kind of illustrated this point for me and honestly got me thinking along these lines. So I recently went back to my parents, my hometown, just for a couple days for a visit. And my parents called me on my drive back home asking if I could pick up a few things at the grocery store, because I eat a shit ton of food and they weren't prepared. So I said, yeah, no problem. I go to the grocery store, and one of the things I had bought for them was a gallon of milk. I put it on the conveyor belt, and pretty quickly this huge pool of milk starts forming on the conveyor belt. And I realize it's a leaking jug. It's happened to me before. It's not a huge deal. And the cashiers are usually really good about taking care of it. The cashier was maybe a 50 or like 60-year-old man. And I don't want to rip on people, right? But I mean, he was gross. Like, he was fucking bald. Like, he had a fat belly and just was not presenting himself well, like we talked about in the previous episode. And this leak is happening and he's just staring at it for like 20 seconds. He just looks at it, and I'm kind of shocked. And I'm like, do you have some paper towel or something you can use to sop this up? Because like, I didn't have anything on me like that. And he just stared at me. He's like, I don't know. I'm supposed to be on lunch. And it took me like almost bullying him and like some of the other cashiers around to get some paper towels to get this thing cleaned up and get me checked out of the grocery store. And, you know, it is what it is, right? Like, I don't like to rip on people, but it did leave me thinking the way that he addressed that problem is the reason why at 55 years old, he's fat and he's a cashier at a grocery store. I don't think anyone aspires to do that. No one applies to a cashier job at a grocery store because they love the work or they're really passionate about it. It's because they have no other options. And you know why they have no other options? It's because when they were younger, they didn't make any decisions for themselves. They didn't figure out their own path. So the world figured out the path for them. And that's the really dangerous thing about not making a decision in life, is that ultimately the world will make that decision for you unless you have a huge inheritance or you don't need to eat, like you have some genetic evolutionary thing that allows you to not eat food. You're going to need to make money in one way or another. If you don't figure out a path that you're passionate about, then you're going to end up doing something really gross that you don't like. So the main point behind this story is, in your job, whatever you do, don't be that guy. If you see a problem that's on the table that your boss needs solving or that client comes to you with, don't brush it off. Don't hand it off to someone if you are capable of solving the problem. Just go ahead and fix it. Get it taken care of and let your bosses know what you're doing, but just that you have a solution, right? Don't go to them with problems and no suggested solution. And that's the way that you're going to be able to provide a lot more value for your organization and ultimately make more money, right? The goals have to be aligned. The organization has to be getting more value, and then you in turn can be making more money.